Hey everybody, Ted Forbes here, and welcome back to The Art of Photography. In this video, I want to expand on what we started in the last video. And I was talking about a subject, I'll link it up below, but if you haven't seen it, we were talking about this idea of photographic interpretations. And it's a basic idea, but if you take common objects that many photographers have shot, whether they're actual objects, whether they're locations, maybe even people in some cases, and you look at how different photographers photograph the exact same subject. And I find this fascinating from many levels, particularly when you start studying it and you realize what those stylistic elements that each photographer brings can be, and what their own personality, what their own style offer. And I think this is absolutely fascinating. And as I got to thinking about it during the week, I thought, I wonder if this could be perhaps extended into other areas as well. So for instance, could it be abstracts? Could it be color? Could it be like shapes, geometry, lines, things of that nature? And it was reminded of this book that I've got that's a catalog for a show that was done at Pace Gallery in London a few years ago. And this is a really interesting show that they did where they paired up Mark Rothko and Hiroshi Sugimoto together. Mark Rothko being well known for being in the abstract expressionist movement in New York in the 1940s, and Sugimoto, who is, I think, one of the finest photographers that Japan has produced. He's amazing. He's one of my favorites. Hiroshi Sugimoto has a very minimalistic style to what he does, and he's particularly known for this large series work that he'll do. And he might shift styles as he goes from series to series, but one of the series that he's known for doing was the series of seascapes that he did, really 10-year or so period between the 1990s and early 2000s. And what he did was he'd photograph, compositionally they would all be very similar in the fact it was very zen, it was very minimalistic, very meditative images. All of the images are divided in the middle by the horizon line where you see the sky and the ocean or the lake or whatever it is he's photographing, separating the two. But then the differences is in these photos come when you see weather conditions, you see lighting conditions, time of the day, some of them are shot at night, and these images are absolutely beautifully striking. The story goes is that in 2010, Sugimoto had signed on with Pace Gallery around the time they were opening this London location. When he did so, he met Mark Rothko's son, Christopher Rothko, and they got to talking and they were looking at this series of paintings that Mark Rothko had done in the late 60s. They were all painted the same year, so 1969. At the end of Mark Rothko's career, this was the year before he died, his work was restricted for health reasons, so he couldn't paint on the large canvases anymore. So he started working smaller, and he started exploring different things. And Rothko was known for these big abstract color paintings that he did, where he'd divide the canvas, usually by thirds or something of that nature, although it would vary, and he would do these color explorations. And it was amazing that he spent the bulk of his career really on this one concept that he'd explore ad infinitum into different areas. And anyway, 1969 was a departure from that because he started working in what they call the series of dark paintings that he did. They were smaller, but they usually were black and white in nature. Some of them were black on black. They're related somewhat to the paintings that were done for the Rothko Chapel in Houston and such. Anyway, Hiroshi Sugimoto had made a comment. He said that, they kind of reminded him of some of his own work with the seascapes. What he found interesting was that in some cases he felt that the photograph would be more suggestive and the painting would be more realistic. So there's some questions in this meditative quality that they both have, and obviously stylistically they're quite similar too, with a lot of the divisions being down the center of the painting or the photograph. And so what I want to do is kind of look through here, because I think this is a really interesting thing, because first of all, we have artists working in two different mediums. Obviously, we have photography and we have painting. And, the interpretation in this case is not something that's specific. It's something that is more of a compositional thing. It's a meditative gesture. It's something that's it's very Zen-like in quality. You're seeing these horizons that are, maybe suggesting of a thought or an emotion, or, it's art that is essentially, it's trying to get the viewer to think and have a relationship with it. And I find this absolutely fascinating that these two were paired up. The other interesting thing is Sugimoto would have been way too young, so Rothko didn't know who Sugimoto was ever in his lifetime. And I am sure that Sugimoto was familiar with Rothko with his art training, but I don't think that that Rothko was in his mind at all when he did the Seascape series. So I think what's interesting about all this, and it relates back to what we did in the first one, is that, you know, as photographers or as artists, we see things that we interpret with the camera. Whether that's an object, something like a flower, or maybe it's an individual, a portrait, maybe two people shoot the same portrait of the same person, but each take on their own complete style. They're not related to one another, they're only related to the object. And in this case with Sugimoto and Rothko, I believe that the object is more of just a simple gesture of shape and light. It's reduced down to black and white in all these cases, and this simplicity of relationships in a composition is just simply divided in two. Anyway, I think this was a great idea. I think this was a really interesting show that Pace did with this. The two artists really don't have a lot in common at all, but then when you realize that there's certain compositions from periods of each one's career that you can mirror like that, and I find this just absolutely interesting. I want to continue this discussion, and we'll sprinkle this into episodes as we move into the future. And somebody had suggested to me, as many of you know, we do the book challenges where I give away books, and these would make interesting themes for the book, maybe something that's more of an interpretation theme, or we also talked about the idea of doing an homage to where you could actually do something that is accredited to someone else's style, and that's interesting as well. So keep your eyes posted for that, because we will be doing some stuff like that coming up. And speaking of the book challenge, tomorrow is the deadline. So February 14th, 2015, you got to have your photos in. I will not accept images for entry past that date, and I have my work cut out for me. I said I was going to limit it to 3, and I think everyone entered 3. So anyway, it's going to be fun. There's some great work that's being submitted. If you head over to Twitter and use hashtag #AOPBG, that is Art of Photography Book Giveaway, you can actually enter that into the search and you can see what people have put in. That's what I do to go judge the competition. And make sure you hit all and not just the top related so you can see everything. And some amazing stuff that people are putting in, and we will have that finished up this weekend. I'll announce the finalists and the winner next week, and we'll have a book competition shortly thereafter. If you guys enjoyed this video, remember to like it and share it with your friends. And if you get a chance, leave a comment and let me know what you think. I think this interpretations idea opens up a lot of room for discussion, and I think there's a lot of interesting things that we can think about and have conversations with. So I encourage you to leave comments and join in that discussion. And I will see you guys in the next video. And once again, I really appreciate everybody watching. My name is Ted Forbes. This has been The Art of Photography. See you in the next video. Later.